From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is the original podcast about consumption. We are a weekly podcast about consumption. We are also proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our previous episodes at yourunpodcast.com. And while you're there, make sure to check out all the other great shows that are on the You Run Podcast Network. With me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast, and his name is Sean. Sean, aside from all the farts over there, how are you doing today?
My man.
That was the unexpected response that I needed. So, Sean, how are you doing today?
Amazing. Great. Unbridled enthusiasm. Yeah. That's what I've got today.
Well caffeinated, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. Cocaine.
We'll go with that. It's way more effective. You've been watching anything this week? Have you consumed any consumables?
I've consumed some content.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll talk about a couple of them. I caught up on a bunch because we haven't done Wrestler Corner in a while. I caught up on a bunch of the WWE biographies that were on A&E. Mark Henry, that was a good one. A really good one. Actually, really inspiring story. I don't know if you know much about Mark Henry, the Olympic weightlifter.
Those are on my to-watch list pretty soon here.
That's a good one, so I won't spoil it, but it's not really out of the ordinary, but it's just a cool story, like his whole kind of backstory and his weightlifting and the strongest man in the world and all that stuff. I watched the Ted Dibiase one, which was pretty cool, but they left out like basically 6 years in the middle of his career from like 82 to 88 or something. They don't really talk much about his wrestling outside of WWE other than just to kind of glaze over it and be like, yeah, he wrestled. He was good.
Wasn't he a WCW guy for a while there?
Maybe at the end of his career. I think that he was always a WWE guy though.
Okay.
And
I'll believe you.
And then just today I watched the Paul Heyman doc, which, Paul Heyman, Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman. I don't personally like Paul Heyman much. Like I don't really have any affinity towards him because he was on ECW when I watched all this wrestling that I was really into. And then now he's just kind of like the guy that mean mugs behind the popular wrestler at the time. I did find it interesting that with all the Vince McMahon stuff that they showed a lot of Brock Lesnar clips and parts where he's talking and he's kind of implicated in some of the Vince McMahon sexual human trafficking kind of weird shit that's still underway. So that was my Wrestling Corner minute. But on the more serious side, there's a documentary I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's called 1984 San Diego Massacre, 77 minutes, which sounds really uplifting and fun.
Doesn't sound like a documentary. It just sounds like something I would put on and then would be disappointed that it's a documentary.
It's definitely a documentary. It's about a mass killer that shot up a McDonald's in San Ysidro, which is like outside of San Diego, and killed 19 people out of 50 or something that were in the restaurant. They kind of very graphically detail like what he did. And it's weird because, go ahead.
So it's kind of like a mix of Coming to America and Falling Down, but not funny at all.
Minus all the comedy. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I don't Falling Down has some comedy, I guess. Maybe not so much under a 2024 lens, but
it's kind of like Idiocracy. It's unintentionally funny.
Yeah, and the thing with this documentary that I find, really weird is that they recount the story with people that were victims, like not actually, obviously, people that were dead, but people that were shot, their friends were killed, just stuff like that, and they intersperse it with this.
I'm laughing because I'm picturing someone sitting on top of like a gravesite with a microphone like, whoa, can you tell me about your experience? And just being very upset that the grave isn't talking.
You're not going to get much out of that one. So
hard interview, this guy.
This whole thing is interspersed with these victim, like firsthand accounts of this tragedy, right? And it's interspersed or cut with these pieces of the police footage of the aftermath, right? Of the police crew that go in. And there's a section where there's a guy who was a local news cameraman. And he says, he was one of the first on the scene. And he was friends with some of the crew that filmed, the police crew that filmed like the aftermath, and just how he wished he had never seen the footage, right? Obviously, it's traumatic. And you see like in this documentary, there's just footage of bodies just blown, not necessarily like super graphic, but they're dead. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And right after he says he wishes he had never seen the footage, the documentary starts to roll through the footage from the police crew, which is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you're telling this guy saying he wishes he'd never seen it, and then you're showing it. And the documentary, the thing that really kind of cheeses me off, I guess if that's the way to say it, the documentary is longer than the actual tragedy. And then when 77 minutes, because the whole thing lasted 77 minutes, this whole standoff. And, you know, they go into like how the police they were at fault because, you know, the director tries to pin things like faulty intelligence or the chief, or not the chief, but the SWAT team commander's like beeper didn't work for whatever reason. Like, it wasn't the police guy's fault. I'm not like taking sides or anything, but
Sure.
In 1984, I don't think beepers are super reliable. And he didn't get the message. He was at a junket, like not a junket, but like a training thing. And the director's trying to, in 2017 or whenever this thing was made, I don't know, the director just tries to come across as this real hard ass. Charles Min is the director. And just choices to do stuff like show footage from the tragedy, tell you at 77 minutes of the movie, this is how long these people were in this place. I mean, it's horrific. Like, no one should ever have to live through that kind of thing. But I don't know. It just seemed kind of exploitative a little bit, you know, just kind of not talking to victims, but just the part about showing the footage and stuff, or showing just dead people and shit, just in general. Like, what is there to gain from seeing this? Yeah, you told me it's bad. You showed little clips, and that was enough. That kind of really put a exclamation point on how despicable this whole thing was, but you didn't need to show the whole footage. And it, like I said, just felt really kind of dirty, and it kind of goes along with what we're going to talk about today. On a lighter note, I watched the movie Firewalker. It's a Cannon Group Golden Globus production, and it stars Chuck Norris and Louis Gossett Jr. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, I'll put it this way, it's not a great movie, but Chuck Norris actually comes across as like a charismatic actor, like someone who you'd actually want to hang out with, which I don't feel like any of the other movies really that he's made, maybe other than even something like Sidekicks. He just comes across so wooden all the time.
I can't ever think of a time where I would use the adjective charismatic to describe Chuck Norris.
He actually acts in the movie. There's not a whole lot of martial arts. He's not bad.
Okay.
It's flabbergasting. Like, I was like, wow, this is a good team. Louis Gossett Jr. and I was going to say Christopher Walken, Chuck Norris actually work well together. It just seems like a cool.
Why not have it be why not a trio?
Well, it is actually, but not with Christopher Walken.
No, disappointed.
I think Melody Anderson, I think, is the actress's name. She was the lead female actress in Flash Gordon. I don't remember. I think that's her name. Melody Anderson, I think, is her name. And she's the female, like, I don't know, Chuck Norris love interest throughout the movie. And she like puts these guys on this quest to find this, you know, mythic Aztec gold or something. And I don't know, all the different sets or whatever that they go through, you know, when they're in the caves, it's clearly like the same cave set that they use for multiple different scenes, or the jungle scenes, or they're actually in some kind of wooded area. But I thought it was pretty good. All the stuff we talk about, we'll link in the show notes here. So yeah, that's what I watched this week. How about you, John?
I'll start with the thing that I'm going to talk about the least, even though it's the thing that I like the most that I saw this week. Okay. I went and saw Alien Romulus in the theater because...
Oh, did you now?
Well, I don't trust the internet not to ruin it for me, and I'm not going to ruin it for anyone. The only thing that I'll say with it, because I'm going to keep it short, one, because at the time of this recording, I know you haven't seen it, or I'm quite sure you haven't seen it, and probably want to. And it's only been out for like 2 days, so I don't want to ruin anything. The only things I'll say is I enjoyed it quite a bit, and for the first time since the first movie, it feels like a horror movie again, and I like that. So I won't say anything else about it, but if it is still in theaters when you hear this, go check it out. It's worth seeing. I've heard a couple different opinions about it at this point. I don't care. I liked it.
So you liked it?
I did.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's right. John likes a movie. And not as good of movies, I saw the TV Glow, which came out recently, last couple weeks. It's one of those movies that's like, it doesn't have a lot going. It's a very like talky movie, which is kind of weird for the kind of horror movie that I think it's supposed to be. But it's the kind of talky movie where everything's quiet, but the characters all talk like this. So you have to turn the TV up to like 50 or anything, even though nothing's going on. And it's really fucking annoying through the whole movie. So I sat through like, I don't even remember how long this movie is, but like an hour and a half, 2 hours of that. And the whole time I'm like, fucking speak up, you little brat ass kids. Like, whatever. It's 100% the kind of movie that has an audience. I guarantee there are people that are either way smarter or way dumber than me that will appreciate it more than I did. Could be a little bit of both, but it's definitely not for me.
I just want to say I am very surprised that you didn't use A24 as a descriptor of the movie, and I'm very happy that you didn't use that descriptor because I don't know what the fuck that means.
So go watch that and you might understand more of what it means.
All right, cool.
But
nice.
I didn't use it because I knew you were going to bitch at me if I did.
Oh, shut up. You did not.
I had a feeling. That said, though, there are some cool like visuals at a couple points in the movie, some like real tripped out spots. You can't hear what's going on, but it looks kind of cool. I sent you an image from it before I watched it earlier this week. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on in this movie, but I'm interested now. It looks like a big toothpaste monster or something.
I thought that was from what we were going to talk about today. I was like, oh, all right.
I wish, but I don't want to play my hand on what we're going to talk about today quite yet. So
don't read the title, folks.
Well,
just click play.
I don't want to. Yeah, that too. I don't want to play my hand as far as how I felt about that fine piece of cinema.
Got it.
Have you been watching the new Hard Knocks?
I have.
The Chicago Bears.
I've been watching it.
I have too. I'm caught up on it. I kind of think that Caleb Williams is a tool based off this show.
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling too.
He just seems, I don't know. Honestly, it's the same opinion I had of him when he was in college. He just seems like a real entitled brat who happens to be able to throw a good football. And I don't watch football hoping someone gets their ass kicked or gets like seriously hurt. But like, I'm not going to be mad when that guy gets put on his like face, in the first game where it's like a live game. But I won't be mad about it. So just leave it at that. Do you have any other opinions on that show thus far? I mean, it just kind of feels like at this point, although I still like it and keep watching it, it's just going through the motions of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, I like the postseason Giants better so far. Mm. And I haven't watched all those episodes either, but that just seems more interesting because we've seen the whole training camp thing. I don't know how many seasons now, 20. I think it's like 20 something.
A lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
So we've seen all that before. We've seen this like training camp, and they cut people, and that sucks. And then you get, they're going to showcase these players, and they don't know. The thing that I think is genius about Hard Knocks is that this show comes out as it goes. So after the second preseason game, you're watching the episode about that before the next week is over. So they edit all that stuff real quick. It's professional. It's very packaged. It looks great. And you get to see it week to week, but we know the arc of what's going to happen. So it kind of seems a little boring, but the postseason one, because we really haven't seen that. And even the in-season ones are interesting because they don't follow that same format. They don't follow that same formula. Like it's not always the same because the teams are always in different positions. And of course, during the in-season seasons of Hard Knocks, they try to pick teams that are going to be contenders or they think are going to be contenders. And sometimes it just blows up in their face. And didn't they do one with the Colts that they ended up sucking, like with Jonathan Taylor and what's his face, the quarterback Wentz, and they did Arizona, and Arizona like imploded. So it's kind of cool.
Arizona imploded for a number of reasons, including their quarterback getting hurt. But yeah, I like that the in-season one kind of changes the timeline because they don't really start playing it till like week 8 or 9, something like that. And it compresses everything into 2 weeks. So the first half of the season, you get these super well edited, super clean, like they can cut a ton of shit, make it look like whatever they want. By the second half of the season, once you're kind of starting to wrap up, it's a little more rushed, like you're saying about the regular version of Hard Knocks. The preseason one, I mean, it really feels like the amount of entertainment of the show is based off two things. The coach, because they did I think he was with the Houston Texans still, but they had Bill O'Brien as the coach at the time, and he was a fucking psycho, which made it somewhat entertaining. Or whenever they had Rex Ryan on it, I hate Rex Ryan as a lot of things. Like I don't want to watch him generally, but him as a coach on Hard Knocks, pretty fucking entertaining. So they got to have like a coach that has a personality, and I'm not sure Eberflus has that at this point.
Yeah,
at least not from the 2 weeks. Like I feel I don't know how close you follow the NFL like for that, but I feel like he's going to be fired by week 6. So he's probably one of those short lists of coaches that aren't going to make it through the season. But
yeah, when they started talking about him at the beginning of the first episode and they talk about how he has a beard now. Yeah, it was like, he seems very, for lack of a better term, very straight and boring. Like he's not very quirky. He doesn't really have much of a personality. He's just like, he's a coach. And I was like, this is his third season, right? And I think the first season they really stunk. And Justin Fields last year wasn't great. And as great as they thought he was going to be, or they wanted him to be. And they didn't do terrific. Like, I think they were serviceable last year, right? They weren't like in the playoff run, but they weren't.
They were like 6-10, 7.
Oh, did they finish that far below? Even?
Yeah, they got like 6 or 7 wins, something like that.
I thought that's what it was, but the way that they made it sound in the first episode of this season of Hard Knocks, it seemed very much like, oh, they were on the up and up. It's like, well, how bad were they the year before? You know, I didn't remember them being very good, but the way that they talked about them, I thought that they were almost like on the cusp of having a winning season. But if you're like, 6-11 or however many games they play now, that's not even close.
Generally, if you're drafting first, and I know they got there through trade, you're pretty shitty. If you have two top 10 picks, you didn't do great.
You weren't doing a lot of good things.
So that, or you're just mortgaging the shit out of your future. And like, I guess it worked for the Rams. Like, they didn't have a first round draft pick till like this year, I think, for like a 8-year period there. But no, I mean, I still like it. I still enjoy Hard Knocks, but it does feel very much so like they're just going, it's like missionary sex. They're just going through the motions at this point. It's not bad, but here it is.
I mean, it's better than not having it, but
yeah, exactly. You gotta take what you can get. There's this new show that's on Netflix, which is basically, I'm sure you do, but for those who don't remember, the show Pimp My Ride, but without Exhibit and with some new, less funny comedian. Like with Exhibit, he was never trying to be a comedian. He was just this like, 90s rapper who was like, yo, dog, I'm going to put a aquarium in your car for some reason. And he just made it sound ridiculous. It's kind of what they're doing, but it doesn't stick as well without Exhibit there being like Exhibit, and the cars that they make aren't as, I don't know, rolling fire hazards as what they were doing on Pimp My Ride. Like there's everything they've done on this show so far, I'm like, that looks like it could actually drive down the street and maintain its, structural integrity, unlike some of the Pimp My Ride stuff. But that's, for my love of like fixing up shitty car shows, like this one's not really hidden for me. And then the only other thing I did, because I had some, bad taste in my mouth from some shitty movies like this week, I decided to go back and start watching Silicon Valley again, which I loved that show when it came out and was in its initial run. I do not like the main character at all. And when I'm going back to, I got through maybe, it's like 30-minute episodes. So I got through maybe like 5 episodes. I'm like, I don't want to watch this fucking dickhead struggle and like vomit on himself for another, like, I think there's 6 or 7 seasons of that. Like, I'm out. I don't need to watch this all over again. Like, I think Mike Judge is one of the, as far as like comedic minds go, he's one of the better guys out there in Hollywood that still gets, regular recurring roles. And, I talked about my love with Beavis and Butthead and a bunch of things on this show multiple times. That show did not hold up, and it's mostly because the lead character is a fucking twat waffle.
I don't remember his name.
His
Thomas,
name is
something. Yeah. Ditch Digger or something, right?
Sure. I don't know. He's generally plays like the skeevy nerd in movies or something like that, or like the quirky guy, and that's pretty much what he is in this movie or this show too. It's just he's, like I said, so hard to watch go through these motions a second time. It's like the missionary sex, but in a bad way. It's the missionary sex you don't want.
It sounds like an endorsement.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got as far as like shit that's worth talking about this week, though. Like I said, go see Alien Romulus, or Alien Rom-Com, as I keep calling it. Anything you want to tack on before we take a break and come back and talk about some other fine cinema?
No, I'm just so chomping at the bit to talk about this fine piece of cinema.
You can tell we've gone a lot longer on Hard Knocks and stuff that we don't usually go on about. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about
The Mousetrap.
Ah, fuck. And end episode. Hey everyone, I want to take a second to talk to you about the Horror Friendly Podcast. The Horror Friendly Podcast is a film review and analysis podcast that talks to you about old movies, new movies, and a lot of stuff in between. The crew consists of 3 hosts, 2 of which are enthusiasts and 1 that is a novice, and they have a fun time breaking down horror movies from every generation. As August rolls on, we are coming up to the end of this season, and we want to ask you to keep an eye on their social medias for a chance to help them choose the last episode this season. You can follow them at Horror Friendly Podcast on Instagram and all the socials, and of course, you can find all of their episodes at yourunpodcast.com. All right. After a couple weeks of watching some pretty decent movies, we were like, what are we doing? And we said, we got to watch something shitty. We haven't watched something shitty in like 3-4 whole weeks. This will not stand. This aggression will not stand. And we decided we're going to watch the 2024 release of The Mousetrap. Great. We're going to start over on Letterboxd today for our third-party review from Aurora. And Aurora says, I hate to ask, but Disney, could you please copyright Mickey Mouse again? She gave this half a star out of, I don't know what they do here. 5 stars, I'm assuming? I think 5 stars. I don't know. No one's given this more than 1 full star, so I guess we're going to go with 5 stars.
Yeah, I think it is 5 stars.
Okay. So Aurora gives it half a star. Sean, what's this movie about?
All right. So for that, we head over to IMDb. And just to say, preface this has a 2.5 out of 10 out of 777 IMDb ratings. Its popularity is down 42 spots to 309 out of something. And IMDb storyline and plot, they're the same this week. It says... Before you get into the storyline and plot, the fact that this is 309 out of question mark. Yeah.
We watched Point Break recently, and that was in the thousands. We watched Fat Guy Goes Nutsoid this year. That wasn't even ranked. We've watched...
And it should be, damn it.
Yes. The fact that this is the 309th most popular movie that's available to like look at on this website right now says something about something.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I think that we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So storyline and plot, both the same this week. It says, it's Alex's 21st birthday, but she's stuck at the amusement arcade on a late shift, so her friends decide to surprise her. But a masked killer, dressed as Mickey Mouse, decides to play a game of his own with them, which she must survive.
Nah. So, let's start with the cast before we get unhinged here.
Okay.
There's a cast in this movie, I guess.
Yeah. Do you recognize any of these people?
I thought I recognized Simon Phillips, who plays Mickey Mouse through most of this movie. And when I looked at his credits on IMDb, there's like maybe 1 or 2 things that I've heard of that he's in. Mm-hmm. Primarily the show Fubar, which I never got around to watching, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Netflix show.
Yeah. Let's just talk about that. Do we want to talk about Fubar? I know you haven't seen it. I've seen like 2 episodes of it.
I do want to go back and watch it. If nothing else, this movie has made me think, you do need to go back and watch that show Fubar because it's got your boy Arnie in it. But that's the only person that even was remotely recognizable to me.
I noticed the lead is Sophie McIntosh. She plays Alex Fenn. She looked familiar. She is in The Survival Game, I think is what the movie's called. I think that's like The Sacrifice Game. I'm sorry, not Survival Game. The Sacrifice Game, I think that was on like Shudder or something. And I saw it got some kind of medium amount of buzz and I was going to watch it and I decided against it at some point whenever that came out, 2023. But that's the only other person that I remotely recognize whatsoever from this cast. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just might mean these are all up and comers that we've never heard of, right?
That's definitely a possibility.
That's the hope.
Yeah. The director has a pretty great resume behind him. He has a average score of about 3.5 out of his 6 titles here out of 10. So this movie, I mean, I'm going to just paraphrase it very, very, give a quick overview on the plot, and then we can kind of go from wherever we want to go, because I don't think this is going to be one that we're going to be very nice about. Basically, the premise of this movie is these kids get locked into like a Chuck E. Cheese type arcade. I'm assuming it's kind of an arcade for like more of like a Dave & Buster's, like something that's geared around adults more so than kids. By locked in, basically the boss of this place says, hey, I want you to work late. Bunch of kids show up. Turns out they're throwing a surprise party for Sophie, whatever, the main girl. Meanwhile, in the back room, I guess, of this Chuck E. Cheese type place or Dave & Buster's type place, the boss goes and starts watching Steamboat Mickey and
Steamboat Willie.
Steamboat Willie. Sorry, close enough. Mickey Mouse. And somehow a thing falls on another thing and creates a spark, and all of a sudden now he's evil and wears Mickey Mouse and wants to kill things, I guess, and can teleport for some reason. Yeah,
I mean, that's the gist of it. Yeah. With the shittiest Mickey Mouse mask I think that you have ever seen in your entire life.
It looked better when it wasn't on him.
You think
when
so?
It was well, yeah, because it was not by much. But yes, I do think it looked better when it wasn't actually on him. But yeah, this whole movie, so we'll go ahead and give the spoiler warning. There's not a lot of things to spoil in this movie because nothing fucking happens in this movie until an hour into this hour and 20 minute runtime. So there's that.
We should mention the
don't know.
reason that this is like getting all this buzz and why it's probably 309 or whatever we said on IMDb is because this year that whole copyright thing went into effect, that 100 years after the creation of something and the death of the creator or whatever, that becomes public domain. So the only thing in the whole Mickey Mouse thing that is public domain at this point is the Steamboat Willie cartoon. So that's why this movie was made, is that it's basically a cash-in to get people, oh, I mean, Mickey Mouse, oh no, he's in the public domain. Now people can make stuff that's Mickey Mouse stuff and blah, 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 blah. I look at the poster. There is a poster, and it'll be linked in the show notes. And it's something I think that you used on Twitter or something on X. And it's Mickey's Mousetrap. And it looks like a picture of Mickey Mouse, or from the back or something. It looks kind of, I don't know, wet and gross. And it says Mickey's Mousetrap coming soon from the producers of Terrifier 2 and The Mean One. And there is no time in this movie that the character that is on this poster that I'm looking at appears in this movie. The Mickey Mouse that appears in this movie is an overweight dude, and I can say that as an overweight guy, with a hockey jersey and a Mickey Mouse mask on. And that is the costume.
So I shouldn't have posted that. And here's why. There's actually another Mickey Mouse movie that's coming out, which supposedly is going to have a different Mickey Mouse character. But yeah, this whole thing is
movie,
really,
though, right?
No, it's for a different one that's not
It's
out
called
yet,
Mickey's
I
Mouse.
guess.
Both of them are going to be called Mickey's Mousetrap?
I don't know what the other one's going to be called.
Or I guess this one is called, no, it is called Mickey's Mousetrap.
Oh, I think it's called Screamboat. That's it. It's called Screamboat.
It can't be any worse.
Okay.
Oh, I see. It looks exactly the same.
Yeah. So the one that I posted on Twitter was the wrong one. The shitty one that I think I posted on Instagram is the one that actually goes with this movie. Now, not that we're talking about Screamboat because that's not out yet, but I will say just from the poster, I'm a little more interested in Screamboat than what I was with this. But that's not saying much.
Okay, so if I go on IMDb and I look at this other thing is called Mickey Mousetrap. The unauthorized and unbelievable true story of career criminal Mickey Collins' decade-long cat and mouse game with New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. And that's what this poster, Mickey's Mousetrap, is for. So they're using the Steamboat Willie iconography for a movie that is absolutely nothing to do with Mickey Mouse. So they're both garbage.
It's a clusterfuck.
Yeah, it's a
so
big pile of shit.
There's at least, so that's actually a third movie. So there's at least 3 movies now, 2 of which we've seen, or 1 of which we've seen, and 2 come out next year. I'm confused.
Yeah.
And I have minimal expectations, but they keep using this. Yeah, shit fucking shit.
Shit fucking shit.
Shit fucking shit. So is there anything that you did like about this movie? I mean, I guess we could start with that. Like, was there any positives you could take from this?
I thought that Sophie McIntosh, who plays Alex Fenn, was cute. That's about the extent of the praise I would put on this movie. I think I don't want to get into negatives. That's like the positive praise I can put on this movie is that she's, as a actress, you know, I thought she was.
We're gonna
adorable.
get into negatives. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, no, we will get there.
Yeah, I like that there were clips from Steamboat Willie in it. At least that, like,
yeah, that was
very
cool.
brief moments. Like, oh, that's cool. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Like,
I like that cartoon. That's nice.
I'm not mad at that.
But the thing that's like really, I don't know, it just has nothing to do with anything else. Like, it's kind of there.
No.
They show clips of it because it's now public domain and they can show it. And that's really probably the reason they show it at all.
Yeah, but the thing, all right, well, on to the negatives. It doesn't make any, like, it doesn't in any way, shape, or form. The fact that this guy's wearing a Mickey Mouse mask or is, I guess, possessed or, like, I don't know, evil because of this thing somehow. It's never really explained. That's why I'm kind of fumbling on words with it. You could put this guy in like a paper bag and just have him run around killing people. It would have been the exact same movie. There's really nothing that's gained from using the Mickey Mouse character other than the fact that we get to see a couple clips from Steamboat Willie in it, which is like the most entertaining part of the whole movie.
Yeah, and essentially the movie is this guy teleports, he kills people, and he can be paralyzed by a flashlight.
The strobe light, I think, more accurately.
Yeah, and the way that the story is told in this movie is essentially after the fact. It's like flashbacks, and these 2 cops, good cop, bad cop, and the cops are like insufferably awful cops, and they are insufferably awful at playing the good cop, bad cop kind of role. And they're interviewing this like goth chick that was at the party.
Here's a question for you. I've watched a lot of movies.
I've seen 1 or 2.
Have you ever seen cops interrogate a witness through a jail cell like that? Don't they usually put them in a, I don't know,
Like a
interrogation
holding room or something?
I've heard it referred to as an interrogation room
What?
where interrogating usually happens.
where they do
and
that?
there's cameras and shit so they can see what's going on and whatnot. But yeah, these two cops, they're basically like plot armor. They're basically trying to take what little story is here and try to like hot glue it together with these two like hot schlubs that they're calling police officers. It doesn't piece shit together. All it is like they'll say something like, what are these kids' names? So Danny got his ass kicked in the ball pit, right? And she'll be like, is that what I said happened? And they'll go to the ball pit and there's Danny getting like his ass. This is not something that's in the movie.
Didn't actually happen in the movie, but yeah, that's
right.
a good facsimile.
It's basically what they do.
Yeah.
And so that's basically how they're like telling the story, I guess. But did you get the impression there was actually a story being told through this? Because I got this as the impression that this is supposed to be just guy in mask kills young people off one by one until we get to our final girl who probably gets away. Spoilers. That's what I thought we were going to get. And that kind of is, except you don't really see anyone die till way too late. And there's not anything there to make these characters fun, likable, or there's a lot of like, I wish you would hurry up and die, but not like in the way that makes for good movieing.
Yeah, it was very much a lot of, I wish this would hurry up so this movie would be over for me. No, the character, it's the character in the jail, Rebecca, is this goth girl, and she's kind of like the odd one out. She doesn't really seem like she fits in with the rest of the group. And she's like, I don't know, stereotypical like 90s goth person. And she's just she's
kind of going for that. They're kind of trying to push her into that Jenna Ortega look, even though she's clearly not.
And that her acting is not great, along with almost everyone else in this movie, probably everyone else in this movie. They're asking her questions of things that and she's relaying this question, but giving the most like smarmy, pricky attitude the whole time. And there's things that she gives her perspective, and there's no way that she would know any of this stuff because her story, like even just trying to look at it, not even trying to pick it apart, but just look at the story as the way that quote unquote she's telling it, it doesn't make any sense. There's no way she would know any of this. She's not around in any of the scenes except for maybe for 10 minutes total. And she just kind of has to go away in this corner of this Dave and Buster's, and she wouldn't know anything. So, and they to their credit, at least, I guess, the writing's credit, the cops are there to kind of push her on that a couple times, but then they just kind of hand wave it away and they, oh, okay, well, anyways, tell me what happened. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for this to be anything to do with Mickey Mouse other than a cash in. I feel like the stuff in the jail, like the police questioning her, is just to pad the runtime of the movie. Like they had this movie all filmed and they're like, man, this is only like 50 minutes. We got to add some more shit in here. Okay, let's come up with this idea where these cops are asking her question and she can act like an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much. And then it gets really annoying because all of a sudden the guy playing Mickey Mouse or Killer Mouse, whatever, starts laughing in the worst fucking way possible. He has, so it's, I think they're trying to like get some Joker vibe because he just starts laughing like uncontrollably. And like, I think they're trying to be creepy, but his laugh is so fucking obnoxious that every time he does, I'm like, would someone just kick this guy in the balls and end this fucking movie, please? Like, I don't even care who dies at this point. Just something needs to happen to make this stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's just half-baked supernatural shit.
Yeah.
There's not much creativity that went into writing any of this. It's they keep reusing the same set stuff. I don't know how many times they go back to the emergency exit that's chained with a lock on it, and maybe this time the lock won't be on it. No, it's still there. Okay, let's go to the front here. Okay, let's go back. Maybe there's something in the back. Let's go. They continually talk about going to the roof and never do it.
Let's go to the glass window wall
and not
break out.
Yeah.
They also spend a lot of time in the, I don't know what you would call it. They call it the mousetrap in the movie because, roll credits. But it's like I guess it's like an indoor jungle gym type thing. I don't know what you would really call that, but they go back to that like probably 20 times too. It's like, okay.
Yeah, they have very limited locations to use in this arcade, and this is what they used.
Which is kind of disappointing because it's a very colorful arcade. Like one thing you could say about this movie is like it's a good idea for a location because it allows you the option to hide a lot of things in the dark, which they don't do. It gives you a lot of like fun kind of 80s looking like neon tones, which is there a lot, but it doesn't really, after the first 10 minutes of the movie, kind of stop giving a shit about it. Like it stops looking cool and just is like, this is a very blue room of this movie. Okay, we're in the red room now, and that's pretty much all they got.
I felt like a lot of the color use, I wouldn't even go as far as to say neon. I would go as far as to say, oh yeah, RGB lighting is really not very expensive these days. And your favorite YouTuber, using RGB lights, like I have RGB lights here.
I got some over there.
Yeah,
They're behind my TV. So they're like $30.
This is a testament to how available and how inexpensive RGB lighting can be these days. That's what this movie should just be. I don't know, Yongnuo or fucking Neewer or any of these like knockoff Chinese lighting companies that make RGB lights should have sponsored this movie. And maybe they did, because they used RGB lighting for everything. And it doesn't, after a while, it wears thin very quickly.
Yeah. Let's see. So there is I'm just going to skip around. And again, I don't care if we spoil this movie. So there is a pretty big plot twist to try to end this movie, I guess. And apparently there's an after credit scene, which I did not stick around for. So we're not going to talk about. Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you could talk about that.
I don't really want to.
Does it open up for a sequel?
It's not that good. It's actually kind of infuriating because it doesn't tell you anything that you don't already know.
The rest of the movie didn't tell me anything. Why would the after the title sequence tell me anything?
All right, so here's my spoiler disclaimer. After the credits, essentially the character that's in the jail cell is released by the killer. And it's kind of like, okay, let's go. I don't get it. Like, she's cut. Her Achilles is cut, right? Her ankle is cut with a knife by the killer, but that's never an issue at all through the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's like she's in pain for like 5 minutes, and then she's just sitting in a jail cell, like looking like she just strolled in there. Yeah, looking goth. Well, I guess life is pain, so it's okay.
That's true.
So yeah, our final girl we think is going to get away, and I did get a little bit of a chuckle out of what happens to her, because out of nowhere, like, I don't even remember how they did it, but all of a sudden her head is on the ground. They just hack it right off. Like I said, spoilers, I'm not worried about.
With a weapon that comes out of just whatever. That'd be cool if this weapon was in this movie. Okay, it is.
Yeah, so it's a kind of weird scene because it is a little, we're a horror movie audience. We're used to thinking like, okay, well, Alex is the final girl. She's probably going to walk out of here like all roughed up, and, Mickey's going to get out, and here comes the Mousetrap 2, Trap Harder or something. Trap Again with a Vengeance. Better title.
Electric Trapaloo.
Ooh, I like that. And yeah, they just go and hack her head off out of nowhere. And it's, like I said, I got a chuckle out of it just because I was like, finally, something actually happened in this piece of shit movie. So it does have that, but it's a chuckle that I'm like, yeah, but that's not satisfying. Like, just because you CG'd off a head doesn't mean you earned any type of like good vibes from the rest of this shit show of a movie.
You know what's very unsatisfying?
Going an hour into a movie that's a slasher movie without seeing an on-screen death in an hour and 20-minute runtime.
Going an hour and 20 whatever minutes before credits, so an hour and 17 or whatever. And the final thing that you see before the credits and the post-credit stinger is one of the final characters seeing that person's head get cut off, and their reaction, because they have no reaction when anyone dies. They're all supposed to be friends since they were kids. The guy says, "What a cut," and they cut the movie. Like, what is he supposed to say? What a cock? Because this chick that I really wanted to screw, he cut her head off. What a cock. Like, what the fuck? Who would say that? It doesn't make any sense. And why do they cut it? It's just bad choices. I think this movie was made to infuriate people. I think that's what it is.
Speaking of infuriating, I also hate the discount like Randy character that's the knockoff of Scream, who's just so dull and like bad at delivering Randy lines. Like, everyone who's seen that movie has probably rehearsed like, there's certain rules and all that shit that you have to do, and this guy is going through and like, I'd say probably 60% of his dialogue is like kind of hodgepodging off something that Randy said in the first Scream movie, right about there. And every time you hear it, you just want someone in this movie to be like, shut the fuck up, Randy. His name, I think his name's Marcus, but
I've seen Scream. Shut up.
Pretty much. That would have, if they had did that just once, it would have made it better. Is there anything else that needs to be said? I mean, this is a hard one to kind of talk about because I would love to spend more time ripping this apart, kind of like we did with A Violent Nature, because at least we had things to bitch about there. There's so little that happens in this movie. It's almost like hard to bitch about, not in a good way. It's just like, what can I sink my teeth into? I'm
just really apathetic to the whole thing. Whatever. It's a movie. I watched it. Cool.
I've watched a lot of those.
I can't really even be mad at it. It's just this movie to me is like, it's like yelling at a toddler. They just don't understand, they're not going to comprehend why you're even upset.
Yeah, pretty much. And honestly, like, I don't think they care either. Whoever made this movie, I don't think anyone who is a part of this movie came out of it thinking like we made the best movie we could have possibly made. And I actually read somewhere that this might have had an $800,000 budget, and if it did, I want to know where the fuck that went.
Cameras. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, I guess that's a positive. Like the special effects are not, they're pretty much non-existent, but I feel like the actual the quality of what it looks like looks like a good cinema cam or something. I mean, that's what we get.
I'll give you that.
And those can be expensive, and
that.
lenses can be expensive. So
$800,000 worth of expense, because this whole cast probably cost $25.
it can be pretty expensive. Cameras can be pretty.
They probably
expensive.
had leftover pizza from the Chuck E. Cheese that was there earlier.
Maybe.
So
yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just it's a cash grab. Like the only reason that you would be in this movie is because you know you're going to be the first ones to make a Mickey Mouse, quote unquote, Mickey Mouse slasher movie. Even if it has nothing to do with that, you're going to get exposure because you were in this movie. You know, people are going to watch this movie. So you get exposure.
It's number 309 out of question mark right now. And I don't understand.
No publicity is bad publicity, right? Until it is. I just, I wouldn't, if I was a casting director, I wouldn't see anybody in this movie and be like, I got to have them in my movie. There are people that, like I mentioned earlier, there are a couple people that have been in other things. So this is just another thing to add to their list of credits. And, you know, hopefully somebody sees this with influence that'll put them in another movie. But like, other than that, I don't really.
I kind of feel like this movie would have the opposite effect if someone saw this and had the ability to put you in a movie. Watching this might make them be like, I don't know, man, that was a pretty bad Mickey Mouse that was running around there doing all that bullshit.
Yeah,
so.
You did your best. You didn't make the movie. You didn't write the movie. You didn't direct the movie. You just did what was on the paper.
I guess. I don't know. You got anything you want to add?
Then you're in for a big treat, bro. Because it's hot dog time.
All right. I guess I'll start this time because why not? There's not a lot to this movie. I hate the slasher character. His laugh makes me want to like punch him in the balls. Maybe it would make his voice go up a little or like down a little more as opposed to sounding so obnoxious. There's not any entertaining kills. It's just very boring, like fat guy in a mouse costume in the shadows sneaks around a little bit, and occasionally people disappear and don't come back. There's really no redeeming qualities, and at the end of the day, the best thing I can say about it is I liked it more than In a Violent Nature, but not by a whole fucking lot. So I'll give it 2 flaccid, unmustarded up hot dogs out of 10.
Whose hot dog is this? Huh? Is it yours?
All right, so I guess that means it's my turn. I don't want to waste any more of my time talking about this movie. It's a movie about a magic Mickey Mouse that is afraid of a flashlight. That's it. If you respect your time, don't watch this movie. It's clearly a cash grab.
Do not.
Yeah, I don't respect my time clearly because I watched this. It's a cash grab that figured if they made a shitty horror movie based on an expiring copyright that people would see it, and that clearly worked on us. I'm thankful it was an hour and 20 minutes long. I only wasted an hour and 20 minutes of my life watching this. I don't even want to waste any time coming up with really clever things to say about hot dogs. 2 out of 11. We've watched a lot of really, I do want to say this. We've watched some pretty shitty horror movies this year. The one that comes to mind most recently is In a Violent Nature. We talked about Paranormal Highway or whatever it's called from last. We talked about that last week or whatever previously. I think both of those movies are masterpieces compared to this.
I don't know about that.
At least those had some entertainment value, but I feel like this is just like, it's just like on. It's just static.
Well, this, to me, this is, where this is going to live on forever. Like, I don't know where it is right now, like as far as where you can get it. I'm sure we'll have it linked in the show notes as we always do. But this movie is 100% like going to live on Tubi forever and just make money off of whatever ads they crank out there. Because after the first year at most, the word's going to get out that like this is a 120-minute movie that really could have been, that's about an hour too long out of that hour and 20 minutes. And we don't want this on our fucking platform. Well, Tubi's the place for that. There's a lot of these like weird IPs that got reimagined into horror movies. Like I don't know how many Nutcracker movies are on there, but there's like 20 of them that all have like different, killer nutcrackers. So it's gonna have a place to live and get watched for better or worse. That doesn't make it something that you should watch or that is good, but it's that kind of movie. So if you like shitty Tubi movies, give it a week. It will probably be on Tubi before you know it, and you can watch it for free.
Let me ask you a question. Which would you rather watch? This or Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey?
Winnie the Pooh by a billion.
And that's saying a lot.
Winnie the Pooh in comparison to this, looks like a goddamn masterpiece. Because as many stupid things are in that movie, at least things are in that movie.
Yeah, I agree. Like, at least they tried to do some kind of story around the whole Winnie the Pooh story, I guess, like of him going crazy or whatever and killing people. This doesn't seem like they didn't come up with anything. They just said, let's make this movie where this guy watches Steamboat Willie, and for some reason it makes him crazy. He like
teleport.
He spills a drink on a power cord that has a fray in it, and for some reason that like makes the film strip or whatever make him crazy, which doesn't have. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense at all.
I still have no clue where the teleporting came from, and it becomes a huge part of I don't want to call it a huge part of the movie, but it's a part of the movie, and it's noticeable, and it's very much so the type of thing that and I'm sure you're like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, it just makes him a menace.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Anyway.
No more.
All right. We're going to wrap this shit up, but before we do, we're going to talk about our question of the week this week. We do that sometimes. This week, our question was pretty simple. It's, is there a beloved character or franchise from your childhood that you would love to see brought to life on the big screen? So we'll start over on Facebook because that's what I'm looking at right now. And our friend Evan said HBO could probably make an amazing Mighty Max reboot, which I had to look up who Mighty Max was because I couldn't really remember him that well. He's a little white blonde haired kid with an M on his shirt, presumably for Max. Do you remember this show?
Was he little, like really small?
He looked like he was. I'm judging by a cartoon character, and I'm pretty bad at this to begin with, but I guess he's probably like 12-ish.
Oh, he looked like a 50-year-old child.
Kinda. But if I remember, I don't know. Do you remember this show or
I
not?
don't.
Okay, well.
Might be out of my age range.
Evan, tell us more about Mighty Max. Maybe we'll do an episode about it. We're not, but maybe. We're going to switch gears and go over to, what is this, X? And speaking of Scott, over at You Run Podcasts, you can follow him at You Run Podcast, or of course at yourunpodcast.com. Scott says Thundercats needs a live action movie. I've heard this threatened or something for years. I don't know how I feel about that. Do you have any thoughts on a Thundercats anything, let alone movie?
It could be good. It could be G.I. Joe the movie. It could be G.I. Joe the live action series. So I could possibly be good.
Didn't Kevin Smith just redo Thundercats?
Oh, I don't know. I know he did He-Man a while back, but
was it He-Man? Okay, maybe it was He-Man.
It hasn't been any time recently.
Maybe I'm confusing them. Okay.
You might be right. I think there was some kind of rebooted Thundercats, but I don't know who was attached to it.
I think you're right, though. I think Kevin Smith did He-Man. Anyway, Thundercats feels like the kind of thing that would be better to give like the Super Mario treatment and just do a full CG, like animate the shit out of it and just make it like totally ridiculous as opposed to a live action movie to me. But I'm willing to admit that I could be very wrong. I don't know who you would cast for any of these things in Thundercats, and I definitely don't want to see The Rock playing Lion-O. That would just fucking annoy me.
The Rock doing anything these days annoys me.
It's true. Still on X, our friends at Dissect That Film said, give me a multiverse movie based around the Cartoon Network characters from the late 90s and early 2000s. Dexter starts a chain reaction that will destroy the world if not stopped by the group, including Johnny Bravo, Ed, and Eddie, and the Powerpuff Girls, etc. I love the imagination in this pitch.
This elevator pitch?
Yes.
I thought that they did crossovers like that on Cartoon Network.
They did on their shows,
yeah, but never like a thing that was all encompassing like that.
Not to that extent. I think it was only certain shows. Like I remember C-Lab did a lot of that stuff when that show was still on. Like they would have.
Oh well, yeah, that was all that. That's where Space Ghost really came back into, right?
Yeah,
all the Hanna-Barbera
Space Ghost did a lot
stuff.
of that shit too. So I feel like it happened a little bit on Aqua Teen, but I don't know that it happened a lot past that. I also didn't watch a lot of that past roughly basically it was around the time when they started changing showrunners for Metalocalypse and the Boondocks and all the shows I liked on there. I just kind of tuned out around that point, but I don't remember what year that was. Let's see. The Krusty Boys, also on the You Run Podcast Network. Big fans. They say, I'm a big fan of The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The movie just released was underwhelming, to say the least, and I want to see it done justice. I can't stand Stephen King as an author. I think his books often turn into decent movies, but I don't really have much of an opinion on this. Do you?
I've always wanted to get into Dark Tower. I got that going for me. Thought about getting
the
comics.
12 books, isn't it? It's a lot of books.
Yeah, it's a lot of books, yeah, as far as I remember.
Okay. So, Dave over from Listen to Their Screams says, Silverhawks. I don't know what this is.
Hell yeah, buddy. I'm right there with you. Silverhawks.
What is it?
Silverhawks are like these, I don't know how to describe it. They're these space dudes that live on a spaceship and they fight crime, essentially, but they all turn into different, they're like these metallic chrome people. And I think they turn into different birds. Space birds.
All right.
Watch you some opening theme song stuff on the Silverhawks.
The gift basically kind of explains what you just said.
Yeah.
Some metallic boobs and some like,
hell yeah.
I guess, jetpack feet or something going on here. I don't know. So our friend Justin over at Pop Culture Reflections Podcast said, Denver the Last Dinosaur with 3 exclamation points, which I just looked this up, and this dinosaur looks like a cross of Pete's Dragon and the cast of Captain Planet. It's from 1988, so I guess it is after Pete's Dragon, but before Captain Planet. Do you know this one?
No. It's giving me Land Before Time vibes, but I don't see a picture just off of your description.
I could see, it looks like he's a little more radical than that. He's got a guitar at one. The dinosaur has a guitar, so.
That's pretty radical.
Yeah, that's definitely past time or something. Over on X, Horror Geek Mel, and she says, I want the Jetsons to return. You know, I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't seen a modern take on the Jetsons in one way, whether it's live action or the cartoon route. It seems like that would be a show that would kind of adapt well to a new generation just because it's set in the future. So you can kind of make it whatever you want. And there's a lot of stuff in that show that still doesn't exist today. So you could do it and have it, you can modernize it without having it feel like you're retrofitting something that was already dated, I guess, if that makes any sense.
All I want to know is what's on the ground.
I want to know where the ground is.
I want to know what the ground looks like. Is it like the Flintstones? Is it like Elysium? Is it just toxic, like Fallout shit? That'd be pretty cool.
Tank Girl. I think it's going to be like Tank Girl.
Okay.
So, Sean, do you have an answer for this one?
I have a
question of the week.
I do have a couple.
Okay.
Mickey Mouse. No. I would love, I don't know how they would do anything with this. I would love to see some kind of micro machines thing, because I loved micro machines when I was a kid. You know, all the little cars, and I don't know how you would do it. I don't know what you would do. Maybe you'd make them form some Voltron robot. You know, there was like 3 different Voltrons, you know, like the 3 robot ones that stacked their bodies up. And then there was the Lions one, and then the cars and the planes and space shuttles and shit that turned into a Voltron. I think that would be cool if they did micro machines out of that. The other thing,
if they can make a Lego movie, and I actually thought that was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I like
whatever
those.
that is. I don't see why they can't do a Micro Machines movie.
That'd be pretty cool. The other one that may be a little bit more obscure would be the Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers. That would be pretty cool, I think.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
It's like a Western cartoon. Yeah, it was like space and Western shit. Space Western shit. They rode like mechanical horses, kind of like Silverhawks, but Western.
So I'm going to take a little different route with this. I would like to see a modern take on Scooby-Doo, but I want it to be in a well-done R-rated horror movie. I was just talking with Justin from Pop Culture Reflections Pod about Scream again. Scream, not Scream again.
Scream again.
It came up again how there's a lot of like Scooby-Dooing in that movie where Ghostface trips over stuff and, you know, it's clumsy as shit and whatnot. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing like a full-on, like, go like Monster Squad treatment and do like a Scooby-Doo movie like that where you actually fully flesh it out and don't make it so kid-based, make it more like an adult-based story. I don't know. I could have fun with that. So I wouldn't mind seeing more Scooby-Doo, but with more adult tones as opposed to making it for 4-year-olds.
You know what would be cool? Mask. You remember Mask?
Like the Rocky Dennis kid?
No.
Or
the Mask toys in cartoon.
The Jim Carrey one? Which one are you talking about?
Mask. Where the dudes, like, they got into, like, the different vehicles and stuff. The toys came with the vehicles, and they would, like, turn into robots and shit.
Apparently they still make these.
Really?
Yeah. 36. It's called. So if you go to maskforce.com, you can go. This is what's going to happen on this show now. We're going to talk about toys and shit.
Toys and shit.
So I'm looking at it right now. Mask Force. It's very poorly laid out on here, but I like that in big gold letters. It says 36 years old. Welcome to maskforce.com. And there's all these things that are like what you described. So yeah, I'm all for it because they're 36.
Actually, I think this series started in 1985, which would make the show more like 39. So the website needs to be a little bit updated.
I already found this website. They're 36 years old until further notice.
That's it.
So.
God damn it. We are 36 forever.
That's right.
I wish.
Got anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up on this episode?
No, sir. Let's just fucking wrap it because I'm so tired of even thinking about Mickey's Mousetrap.
It is a nice piece of shit. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to wrap up. Apparently, I'm supposed to close this thing out. So if you want to interact with us more, that would be really great. We do questions of the week, and you can usually find those on our social medias. We are at Dewey Pod Monster on all the usual places, all the social medias. Search Dewey Pod Monster, you'll find us. You can also find all of our old episodes at crap.town, which is our site, or at yourunpodcast.com, which is where you can find all of our old shows, new shows, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network. Oh, and we have a YouTube channel. You can check stuff out there. Maybe Sean will tell you about that. Sean, what else? I'm being distracted by a movie that I'm more interested in because it keeps replaying a trailer over here.
Yeah, we do ask questions of the week on social media. If you want your question of the week answer read on the show, just follow us on social media. You can answer it there. Also, like John mentioned, we have a YouTube channel. We post little special extended, well, not extended. We post extra episodes, little video content there that we like to call Shoot the Shit. You can find that at youtube.com/@DeweyPodMonster. Also, thanks to everybody that's been answering the poll questions. If you got feedback for us, leave it on the website crap.town. You can leave it on Spotify as well. And if you're interested in checking out my Michigan beer content, you can find it at youtube.drafttherapy.com or follow me on all the social media networks at Draft Therapy.
By the way, thanks to those polls, this is about to become an all Steven Seagal podcast. So going forward, starting next week, it will be Steven Seagal every week, no matter what. So we will be back next week and talk about the Steven Seagal classic film,
Steven Seagal's colonoscopy.
We could do that, or we could talk about that Mike Tyson one. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Cheers. Blah, blah, blah. So we'll be back next week, and I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I got a feeling it's not going to be involving Mickey Mouse in any way, shape, or form. You have yourself a great week. And
what about all the closing stuff about find us on the social network and all that shit?
Do what Sean said.
Here's a nice piece of shit.
We did get actual footage of Steven Seagal's colonoscopy, and I want to see what's in his colon.
Wait, what?